My next challenge for the twisted table is to try to figure out how to join these steam bent forms, which are imperfect and they're longer than they need to be because I wanted offcuts, with this nice square table top that I built in my last video. So I'm going to show you how I went about doing that. I used the same forms that I used to bend them, and with some all thread and pieces of hickory, I clamped them to that form so that I could be sure that they were going to be in the exact position that they would be when they were in the table when I made the cuts, so that if I made those cuts square, then everything would line up perfectly with the joints on the table. And I'm going to make these cuts on the miter sled, on the miter saw, and I made this holder for that form so that I could rotate the pieces around, referenced up against the same stop block, so that everything would just be perfectly square on all four of those cuts. Now, this was a bit scary. First I had to take the guard off the blade because it was in the way. I used that clamp to have some control on the rotation of the form while I made this cut, and keep my hands away, but this made me nervous, and you'll see here in a second I get a little bit of a, I guess you'd call it a kick forward, as this piece slides off and kind of gets wedged in the wheel. Luckily I had the forward slide locked so that the saw didn't come forward at me. And this only happened once. I learned to make the cut with, how to describe it. The second cut is always the one with the piece most horizontal, so it doesn't slide forward, and that seemed to work better. Just release the last bit of material here, and that offcut doesn't slide forward. I certainly would be curious to hear any ideas on how to do this safely. I have a second stop block that the whole sled registers up against, so that I can make the same cuts on the other side. So with that exciting part over, I keep the two parts of the leg locked into that clamping form and drill the holes for the dowels that I'm going to use for the joinery. Now on the inside leg, I need to cut a taper in that so that it meets up with the thinner side rail. So I'll lay that out here and at least make sure that I get the dowel joints drilled within the part that's not going to be the offcut. I can put 4 dowels in the other side because it's the full length, about 4 inches. I make this little stand so that with the drill press table level and that reference block level and registering against the 2 legs, I have everything perfectly lined up, and I can drill the holes for the dowels and finish them off with a hand drill when I've got them started straight on the drill press. So that's it. Now I can take them apart, and when they're twisted back into position, it takes some doing, but once that happens, all of those lines and holes should be perfectly flush with the tabletop. So in theory, we'll see how it goes. Wish me luck.